but whatever you do, embrace, learn, and then live each day on purpose with purpose, and then let your passion push you to purpose. Learn from what you had to endure, gain that wisdom, that knowledge, and that you do not repeat the same cycle, but learn from it, and always look at things not as a bad experience, but a learning experience.
Welcome to the Going North podcast, where you will be encouraged, informed, and empowered to embrace your dreams and advance in life through authorship. I'm your host, bestselling author, certified leadership trainer, and book enthusiast Dom Brightman. Be sure to check out the goods and services from every guest, as well as some of the books from yours truly, the host. Now let the fun begin. And today on the Going North podcast, where we bring you some fabulous humans from across the globe. Today is no different. Well, it's actually kind of different because this is a Charm City bonus episode with some of Baltimore's finest authors, some that you haven't heard of yet because you've been living under 10 rocks. Well, today we got another superstar guest, because if you look in the dictionary under endurance, persistence, and energy, this guy's face is going to be in it, because my man's been pushing hard for the past 4+ years and is still going and charging forth. And now he's got a radio show of his own that you need to tune in every Friday night on Power 4.4 Radio on Friday with the Power of Influence with this wonderful man himself, the one, the only, Dr. Eric Holmes. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. I am wonderful, man. Thank you so very much. I'm doing great, doing wonderful, pushing and pressing and pursuing through all of this that the whole world is dealing with at the same time with the epidemic and being an essential employee. But I am doing great.
Yes, indeed. How has that been, man? Because you've been nothing as much as really changed you from the work aspect, because you're one of the essentials.
It's been good. We get a lot of updates. I am one of the essential employees at Johns Hopkins Hospital. So we, have a lot of information that's given, and a lot of patients are being telemed. So we're calling them, making sure we do have some patients that are coming in that may have had a post-op or trachs, or, our department deals with about 8 departments in one. And of course, we got our mask, our shield, our sanitizers, and all the essential things that we need to make sure that we're safe and secure, as well as making sure that the patients are safe and secure. So we've been navigating through it. And, we have one thing I will say about Johns Hopkins, and I've been there 23 years, but all the information, all the updates you get are just absolutely amazing, because you're updated daily on what's going on.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Because with this nonsense going around, it's like, yep, you got to be updated every day.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And my man is still got the energy, because my man's on, let's see, officially, what is this, book number 2 or 3, if I'm not mistaken?
It's three. Yes.
That's right. Soulful prayers, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Soulful prayers, indeed. That, do you think this might be the easiest project you've been a part of so far in terms of having the
It's
time?
uh one, it's not that it was easy. It was one, of course, when I did The Power of the Seed, that was by myself. Soulful Prayer Volume 1, with all the co-authors, and Soulful Prayer Volume 2. But one thing about it, not that it was an easy project, because nothing's easy when you're putting in a lot of work, a lot of time, making sure things are right, and emails and calls. I will say not easy, but it was persistent. And not only that, it was informational. It was a lot of wisdom, teaching, and knowledge and prayer that was poured into it, that made it the success and bestseller that it is.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Because when I got to your section of, well, of course, yours was the first section I went to. When I got the ebook, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be good. And I'm like, oh my goodness, praise the Lord. It is not 5 pages long of prayers. That's what I'm talking about. It's actually
Yeah,
something short to get to the point.
Yes, and it is. They are intentional communication, and the prayers are intentional. And just so we were able to encourage and uplift, and these were from the heart. And not only that, because we want to inspire, encourage, and uplift, and because so many people are going through so many different things, and it would be at the timing and season that God would allow this to be released in this whole time of this epidemic, because people need hope. People need encouragement. People need prayer. People need to be inspired. People need to know that they can make it. Everybody handles things different. And even though we're all in this epidemic together, people still handle things differently.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And one of the main things I love about that is that not only you live and speak and write your message, you also really continue to live your message. And you mentioned how endurance is needed during transition. So for those who may be struggling to endure now from your experience, what is the main reason why folks need to endure when they're going through a transitional period?
One of the things, Dom, is that, and I wrote an email that I sent out an email to about almost 50 people daily, a lot of employees, and I started out just being in the group and it ended up being with me. So, but since last July, I literally been sending out the daily word, even when I was in Aruba, because I'm committed to doing whatever I do. I was sending it still from Aruba. So one of the things about the endurance is I wrote something today and said, how you handle the middle process is going to determine your outcome, but never get stuck in the middle of the process, because if you endure to the end, there's a prize. Like when I put the illustration with the turtle and the rabbit in the power of the seed, one of the things was it wasn't how fast he was going, he just endured and he kept on going till he crossed the finish line. A lot of times we get stuck or in the middle of our process, but the whole thing is, even as the scripture, the race is not given to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, but he who endures to the end. All we have to do is endure to the end. Whether I come in first, second, or third, a prize is still a prize, because it means I endured and I finished the race, or I finished my course, or I finished school, or I finished college, and you may have started out before me, but as long as I finish and I endure the process, I endure the race, it's still going to be a prize at the end. And so I tell people the endurance part, or even when I wrote in Soulful Prayers, are dealing with the transition, transformation, and transparency, about having to go through the transition and the transformation, but transparency, but to be able to endure the process. It was worth it all, because at the end, there was, celebration at the end of it was, a best-selling book. At the end of it was, you was like, wow, I endured this, and now look what has been released to be able to help and bless so many people.
That's what I'm talking about right there. And it's very important that you mention that piece about endurance, because that's a piece that a lot of folks tend to forget about, especially after they made it through that period of, because there's always the past, present, the future. When they get to the future, they forget the present part where you have to endure till the end, man. So it's great that you mentioned that. What I love about not only your entry into the book that has the magical alliteration of the triple T's, it also mentioned how you help ask for the Lord to help you to be transparent enough to help others. So why do you think that we have to be transparent enough to help others in this time in crisis?
One, when I was sitting in Aruba and I was sitting by the water, and I was hearing it, the sound in the wind, and I was literally hearing the sound in the water. And even with the three T's, one, people need to be transparent in order, because I can't really help you if I'm not transparent to say, well, I have endured this. You may be in the same predicament or going through it, or may have just come out of it, or you may be just entering in it, and I can be transparent. Or when I used the illustration, one of the things was when I wrote in Soulful Prayer Volume 1, dealing with personal finance, when I had been dealing with in between positions, I had to deal with personal finance. However, I'm able to share that and to share with them about the transparency in between positions, which I never had a break in between positions. Yet, here's the transparency of it. I endured it, but yet, in the midst of all of that, came 2 books out of it. And I just finished the work. It's actually not a workbook, but called a worksheet to the power of the seed. So, in the midst of the endurance, in the midst of the transition, in the midst of being transparent, a lot of things came out of it. And so I'm able to be transparent with people who may have be or in between jobs, or dealing with, some people may have been furloughed, or some people might be waiting on unemployment. Well, I was transparent enough in telling them I had to operate in faith and no finance, for the 4 months. And, they denied the money that was owed and going through this whole process. But I endured it. But yet, on the other side of it was a new position. On the other side of the endurance, I did book signings, and I was at the library. I gained a lot of, people in the library, and built a relationship to now my books are in the library. And so the endurance and the transparency was, I was able to share this, and still sharing it with people, that you can make it even in being transparent. Let me share my story so you can see, when you see me now, here it is. Here's the transparency part of it, that I had to endure that process until the other position came. I had to operate in the middle of a wilderness experience and endure it, and to get to the other side. Yet now there was a transition going on. Now here's the transformation of the new position. And not only that, my new phase and my new chapter, but now here's the transparency of it that I'm able to share with you. So when you look at me, you see I went through these 3 T's, but now here I am on the other side of it.
Ah, yes, indeed. And the beautiful thing is, the other side ain't even over yet. This is only the beginning.
And I believe that.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And it's great that you have the belief in that, and you're actually taking the action to make it happen. So it's definitely powerful, and I commend you for that and being an inspiration example to others, because a lot of folks tend to give up when they're in that middle and they forget to endure till the end.
And that's where we miss it, Dom, is because and I always go back. I love even how I connected. He allowed me to connect power and prayer together with the power of the seed and soulful prayers, because there's prayer has the power, and power in, there's power in prayer. But yet, when I did the illustration of even the endurance, and even of the middle process, and even of the transition and the transformation and the transparency, however, I do an illustration in the power of the seed when it deals with the farmer, because as in the natural, it is a way of living, it is a way of produce, it is a way of they producing what they need to live off of. However, he starts from, from the beginning with the preparation, the process, and not only that, before he even sows, before he even plants. But what happens, he's in the middle of the process, which now here it is, he can't get stuck in the middle of the process. So he's got to water the seed, he's got to nurture it, to harvest it. So as it germinates through the underground process, then when it gets to the set time and season, it'll produce what's been sown. We get stuck in the middle of our process, so he cannot get stuck in the middle of the process and not do the middle process of the work that is needed in order for the seeds or whatever he's planted to grow. And so even with us, whether it's in a storm, or whether we're in the middle of jobs, or whatever it might be that we might be in the middle of, is that we can't give up. Quitting is not an option, and the thing about it, we've got to endure in order to get to the other side, or to get whatever the prize is. And not only that, if we get stuck in the middle of the process, I'm reminded, when Paul and them was on the ship, and the storm came, the Euroclydon storm came. However, they had 2 things: either swim or sink. So if I'm in the middle of this ocean and I see the land over there, Dom, well, I have 2 options. Am I going to sink, or am I going to try to swim to get to land? And we can't get stuck in the middle, because just like a train going through the tunnel, if it stops, listen, if you look back, you're going to look ahead. If I get stuck here, I'm not going to move nowhere. So here I am at a crossroad and I'm not even moving nowhere.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And that's a place where a lot of folks tend to let themselves like to be that train where they like to stay stuck in the middle as opposed to actually trying to swim to the shore. Like, come on, go for the land. At least go for the land.
Because if I stay in the middle, I'm going to sink. As opposed to at least try to get to the other side, at least try to get out of the wilderness, at least try to finish the race, whether it's a sprint, a 50-yard dash, a 100, or a 400, or a relay. You got to get to the end of it. I was watching a clip of a gentleman today, and he fell and he was rolling, he was crawling, and then another runner came and helped him up so that he would endure and cross the finish line. So here it is. Even though he fell, he had to get back up and keep on going. Whether it was the roll, whether it was the crawl, whether like the other gentleman helped him up, or just like the turtle, you just got to keep on moving. It's not how fast, but my endurance to get to the other side, my endurance to get to the finish line, my endurance to cross it so I can get the prize that is set before me. And if not even just a prize, just the mere fact that says I endured and I made it.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's right. One of the best feelings ever. One of the best feelings ever. Heck, even sometimes that middle ground of endurance, patience might be needed too. So, any advice for those who may need more patience while they're in the process of going through the middle, trying to get towards their transformational process?
Yes, and that is one of a lot of times so many people lack is patience, or they say, well, don't pray for patience because you just might get it. But the thing here it is. Here
Yep.
it is. You've got to, in life, you're going to have to endure some patience because, I, and I love it because a lot of these illustrations are in the book, especially in The Power of the Sea, because I use so many different illustrations to drive the message home to people, as well as in both Soulful Prayer Volume 1 and Soulful Prayer Volume 2, is that you've got to endure, but patience. You're going to have to, in life, you cannot rush. One, you can't rush through the stop sign. You may be in an accident, or if you run through it, you may get a ticket if you get pulled over. I gotta have patience and not to just rush to trying to get somewhere and then end up nowhere. Patience is a virtue. And so good things does, it is not just a cliche, it does. Good things come to those who wait. When I was in the middle of waiting on the other position and in the middle of the wilderness, in the middle in between positions, in the middle between campuses, I had to have the patience, one, to endure, the patience to have to do getting up every day like I was still going in. I had to have the patience to wait on the process, and it took a process, the paperwork, the physical. You got to get the TB shot. I had to do 7 classes of the my learning and do all the completion. So I literally had to have the patience, one, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have got the job. So you're going to have, if you're waiting on something, whether it's the blessing, whether it's the promises, whether it's waiting on the book. We were going to release this book, and we were going to a book signing, the orange carpet, and then here comes an epidemic, which pushed everything now to, it's been moved to August, and depending on what's going on by then. But even the patient, though it was released, yet we were looking for the book signing, and we were hyped. I had bought a plane ticket, booked my hotel. I had booked it since December. However, things happen in the in between, but you still have to have the patience to know that there's still something coming after this. And that's where we have to think. I always tell people, look at things from another perspective. Even with this whole pandemic, this epidemic, however, it gave people who may have been struggling to get caught up on bills, or not only that, companies are working with people, and you do got to call and communicate. You just can't assume. But however, a lot of things, the executive orders and saying people's evictions and all kind of different things come out of that. And I know we know it's a lot going on, but however, when I look at it from another perspective, when I look at it through the eyes of faith and I see it different. I always tell people, look at it from another perspective, because it really has helped a lot of people. And even with the stimulus and, helping people, and hopefully they were wise enough to use it with wisdom. And because you have to have the patience, or like when you were waiting on the check, you have to have patience, because the truth of the matter is you still had to wait. So when you wait with the expectation, it takes on a whole nother meaning.
That's true indeed. That's true indeed. And that's a major difference. There's a difference between waiting for expectation and waiting with it, as opposed to waiting for nothing.
It is a major difference, because a lot of times we wait and then we don't wait with the right posture, the right mindset. We get impatient, like a car was passing me, and they did all of that, being impatient and speeding, and they went right to the same red light that I went to. Where are you rushing when you may cause an accident or anything can happen? What is the rush? And like the older people say, why are you rushing your life away? Have some patience and just continue to move forward. Continue to endure the process, or endure this thing called life. Why rush?
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. The unhurried life. I think that's what it kind of reminds me of. Yes, indeed. Yeah, because it's so true how we're, heck, even that's probably like one of the biggest things that I feel like I've gained and some other folks may have gained, is the fact that you really don't have to rush to anything right now.
You really don't. Because the truth of the matter, we're all really at some kind of a standstill, with the executive orders, or the way the world is set up right about now. And so, even we still have to be patient. People are trying to rush to get back into opening everything at the same time. And then you have an after effect that we're already seeing what's going on, just like the beach. Everybody's rushing to get to the beach. Not only did they have so much trash and not no social distancing, nobody wore masks, nobody was protected, and then you see the aftermath of a tragedy that's to come. Why are we rushing? It's not like we have not been in the house before. I'm reminded of what, about a year ago, when we had 30 inches of snow. Guess what? You couldn't go out. Where were you going? And if you were not essential, you still had to stay home. So what's the difference? You were in the house. There was no school. Most people's work, you didn't, for wherever you worked at now, unless you were essential. So it's a different perspective of it, but yet and still you had to be in, and you really couldn't go nowhere.
Who knows? Maybe we should have got the snow on top of the corona for the folks who are being impatient.
Yeah, and then you rush into things. And one of the things is, me working in healthcare, is that when you're healing or in a healing process, if you rush it too soon, you have a relapse.
Oh man. You definitely got to speak on that, my man. I'm happened to me from experience. Thought had asthma attack as a kid, and then felt really good running around one day playing, and then boom, right back in the bed the next day, a relapse.
And healing, it's a process. Just like when they say don't mess with the scab, it's the noting that it's healing. There's a healing process. So when we rush, or even say people have surgeries, or people are sick and they say stay home, and we rush to get back, and then you have a relapse. I worked with cancer patients. I still do on this other side that I'm on, but when I worked in our radiology and dealing with whether it was restaging initial, or stage 1 or stage 4, it's a healing process. Because when people rush to get back, because the healing takes place from the inside out, and we rush things, and then you have a relapse. Or even when I talk about an illustration in the power of the seed, I have so many illustrations with a cake. You cannot rush it. It has to, the ingredients, all of that you have to do before you put it in the oven. But then you have to allow time for it to bake. And because it may look good on the outside, but yet it's not done on the inside. If we're not mature enough to handle some of the things that we got to handle, then we're not fully processed yet, and still we're not going to handle it right. And so here it is that I've got to endure the process and make sure I'm ready for whatever the outcome is.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Got the pastor in the house today. Y'all. Got the pastor in the house today. Yes, indeed. And you mentioned earlier about the proper posture for waiting. So, what does that entail? The proper posture of waiting.
The posture of waiting, one, it means a lot of times we wait. Like, I'll use me as an example, and even as being transparent, as one of my chapter in the book, I had to wait with the right expectation. I had to wait with the right posture and the mindset, that God, I'm waiting on this position. I'm waiting on this job, because my mindset had to be right. My posture that I am going to get this position, my posture, I am in great expectation, than to say that my posture, I'm worrying, I'm pacing the floor, I'm not getting up. Like, I went to the library every day as if I was going to work. I went there, I was writing, I was on the computer, as opposed to saying, well, I'm going to stay home. Now, in that whole period, it was a time that I also got a period of rest, because for 10 straight years, I've worked two jobs, and I was in school 5 straight years, working two full-time jobs and in school full-time as I was finishing my doctorate. So even I looked at it from another perspective, that it gave me some rest, but yet and still, my posture was, I'm getting up every day. Then too, I had to fill out paperwork. Not only that, in the library, on the computer, and then when I had to do all the my learning, and I had to make sure that I had all of these completed, the certificates, and send them in. Had I not, with the right posture and expectation, you know, it could have been a different way, because one, I needed the completion of all those 7 certificates. I had to complete the physical, the TB. I had to go back, get it read, make sure they cleared it. All of that was a process. All of that, my posture, I had to go, or if not, I wouldn't have got the position. So my posture of expectation was, okay, I'm getting up. I'm going to follow the procedures. I'm going to get everything and do everything that is required of me. So when I submit it, everything is done, and then I don't have no problems. Now, on the other hand, somebody's mindset or their posture that, they're not going to say finish all the tests that is required, or not go get the TB read when you only have, the 2 days you got to come back. If you don't come back within there, then you got to do it all over again. Why repeat a cycle when you can do it the first time? And too many times we have repeated cycles, or we repeated the exam when we were in school, and we rushed through it. Yet, instead of enduring and taking our time, then we had to repeat it.
Oh man, my man dropping jewels, baby. Why repeat a cycle? Why repeat that cycle? And it's so true. Like, so many folks are in so many different cycles, whether it's a bad financial cycle, or even from a spiritual perspective, the generational curses that folks allow on themselves after cycles of nonsense over generational families and all these other bad habits that create a bad cycle. And it's so true. Like, why get in the cycle over and over again when you can avoid it?
And it's a song that I think John McReynolds sings in cycles. Going in cycles. Why repeat? Like the children of Israel in the whole wilderness, 40 years, they repeated a whole, which should have never taken that long, but they repeated, and in the cycle of 40 years. However, we don't want to repeat the same thing over. And even with my being transparent with the old position I had, I didn't understand how then it started out good, and the next thing you know, it just went left. Or as you were saying, it went north instead of south. But my whole thing was with that. What did I learn in it? the self examination. What did I learn? What did I apply? And what did I take away? It's easier for us to place blame, but here it is. Have I looked in the mirror, like Michael Jackson said, the man in the mirror? Did I self examine? What could I have done better? What could I have did, or what could I have learned? But then what did I take away, and what did I apply?
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's right. We need to pass the off plate around. My man is on the freaking virtual lectern today, baby. My man's on the pulpit today. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, indeed. And that's something that a lot of folks tend to do is that they play the victim game and they want to blame other people when a lot of times, if not 9 to 10 times out of 10, it's usually the man or woman in the mirror.
And that's true. And even though when I look back 2 years ago of that whole experience, and even though some of the things were really like I literally emailed HR, however, I still took a self examination of what could I have done better, or I look at things from another perspective, because literally even the good came out of it, because my mindset and the posture of a greater expectation was I wrote the workbook, which is converted into the worksheet, to the power of the seed, yet I had in my car for 2 years, and now is now in print in my hand. So you look at things from another perspective. So good came out of what most people would think was a bad situation. I always say to people, it was an experience. It wasn't a bad experience. It was a learning experience. It wasn't a bad experience. It was an experience to help me to where I'm going in my next chapter, in my next page, in my next season of my life. And so I took that, and now what I learned, if I was, like I said, I could credential doctors. I know the whole administrative aspect and the executive back part of what I can apply to where I'm going. So good came out of what would people would consider a bad situation, because for the 4 months I had a break in between the employment, yet and still I got more done in the 4 months than if I was sitting there at the job.
Gotta love it when that happens, when you turn lemons into lemonade, as they say. And heck, even had that conversation with a buddy of mine last week about how God's timing is so perfect because we want things right now, but God may be like, nope, nope, not yet, sir, not yet, ma'am. It's got to be in this time. And it's like, you know what? That's why God knows it all. And it's a good thing that He does, because if we ran on our own eyes and our own wisdom, we'd definitely be falling in a lot more pits than we should.
And that's it. I talk about that all the time, even when I share on the radio, when I share talking, or if I'm doing lives. Operate in the timing and season of God. When a seed is planted, it is in the timing and season that is going to produce what that's which been sown. However, we try to operate out of the timing and season of God. We operate out of the timing and season. It may be your time, but not your season. It may be your season, but not your time. So it behooves us to operate in the timing and season of God, and that which is for us will be. I could have operated out of the timing and season and not produced the workbook to the power of the seed. I could have operated out of the timing and season and not been in Soulful Prayer Volume 1, Soulful Prayer Volume 2, yet and still in the midst of the timing and season, here it is. Now, what was birthed is now not just from the reality, from the vision, is now to the manifestation.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. The manifestation, indeed. And that's what I love about the manifestation. So I know a man is a preacher, likes to brag on God. So the good news is, after the transition to the transformation to the transparency, what blessings have you been able to receive in this whole process, going through the 3 T's for the folks at home and their calls and wherever else that need to hear about the good blessings of God? How has God blessed your life after these 3 T's and through these 3 T's?
Wow, I have traveled. I have literally just released as one of the co-authors in Soulful Prayer Volume 2. Of course, I was in Soulful Prayer Volume 1 and Soulful Prayer Volume 2, which are bestsellers, which I am now a best-selling author 2 times. Not only that, a workbook, what's called a worksheet, because he converted it instead of the workbook. A Ty Cook created it to be a worksheet, which I'll be teaching from. Not only that, the position I'm in, and not only that, my own radio show on Power 4.4. I sing God Bless, where I'm in several videos at work. I was a keynote speaker at one of the major conferences last year for Hopkins, for the Head and Neck Conference. Not only that, I've seen God bless and me being a good steward to manage the finances that which He's given. I've seen not only that from being in the right posture and with the right mindset and just in that great expectation to the mortgage rate dropping, to being able to know that your bills are paid, to where I was in a position where I emptied all my cabinets to help a family, and they didn't even know the process I was in, but it was a mother and 2 children, where one of my friends who works for Baltimore Police called me. They didn't even know, and I never shared it, but I emptied everything out. So if I go in there now, it's so full in there that I even still gave stuff away. I was able to bless somebody else with clothes, and it's a wonderful thing, because when you wait, and you wait with the right posture and expectation, and then with the mindset, that there's not a pity. I don't do pity parties, and the thing is, and everybody's different, but the whole thing is, it gets you really nowhere. Complaining and murmuring and all of that, it's not going to really get you anywhere. But however, everybody's different and everybody handles things different. But I've seen God favor me to when I was in Aruba last year, and not only that, to when I gave up my seat on the plane, I end up with $1,000 worth of vouchers. And not only that, I've traveled, I've been on radio shows and TV interviews. I'm on here with this amazing Dom on this podcast tonight. It's the favor and blessings of God, and not just that, the position I'm in and on my job, and just for Him keeping me and sustaining me and just giving me another opportunity. That's in itself, not just even for the financial, or not even just for the materials, but just for another chance, another day of life, another chance that He's allowed me to, have a job. And even through all of this, and through that wilderness experience, and through that transition and transformation, He sustained me and He kept me. He guarded my heart, my mind, my spirit, that, I could have threw a pity party, or I could have did a lot of things that wouldn't have pleased Him, and then missed out. And one of the things the Lord clearly spoke to me, and I end up preaching this message: don't compromise your promise and settle for less. It's worth the wait. And a lot of times we compromise when we are in situations or in circumstances, or as they say, you're back against the wall, or whatever the situation, however put it. He said, don't compromise your promise and settle for less. It's worth the wait. I waited, and not only that, when in the waiting process, so much more opened up for me. And even I was on a Zoom call last week. However, it's going to open up a major door. I was just on the power huddle for the power lunch with Pastor Cam, and he allowed me to share. That was amazing. And of course, being in the Awesome Black Speaker Network, it's so many different doors opening. And so here it is: endure, wait, see it from another perspective, wait with the right posture and expectation, and endure. And then in the whole transition, you'll see the transformation, and then we'll be able to share the transparency with others. And as I tell people, that the seed's been planted, now water it, the harvest will come, and at the set time and the set season, operate in the timing and season, and then you'll see the harvest that is to come.
Amen to that. Amen to that for that good testimony time right there. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's always great we can brag on what God's done for you in your life. Yes, indeed. And it's great that you acknowledge all those. And the beautiful thing is that it ain't even over yet. That's the magical thing about it. It ain't even over yet. So for those who know it ain't over yet, gonna circle back around to the first question from the first interview to close it out, and that is, what advice would you give to yourself if you were 21, but this time in 2020?
Wow. Is one, always endurance. Always see things from another perspective. Whatever you do, quitting is not an option. Whatever you do, that faith is going to be your only means of transportation, and victory is going to be your only option. But whatever you do, embrace, learn, and then live each day on purpose with purpose, and then let your passion push you to purpose. Learn from what you had to endure, gain that wisdom, that knowledge, and that you do not repeat the same cycle, but learn from it, and always look at things not as a bad experience, but a learning experience.
That's what I'm talking about right there. Endurance. That's right. That's what we all need. Especially when you're trying to sweat it out, try to get that weight off or to keep the muscles on. We got to have that endurance. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, for those who want to keep in magical contact with a good doctor, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you?
You can reach me on Twitter at Dr. E, Instagram, Dr. underscore E underscore Holmes underscore, Facebook, Eric Holmes. On my Facebook business page, The Power of Influence with Dr. E. You can also reach me by email, ELYNNK1306 @gmail.com, or every Friday, 6 p.m. to 8. You can reach me and tune in on Power 4.4 Radio, The Power of Influence with Dr. E. All you have to do is download the app Live 365 and look for Power 4.4.
Woohoo! Well, there you have it, folks. From 6 to 8 p.m. on Friday evenings, tune in. Tune in to that man, Power of Influence, to Dr. E. Yes, indeed. My man's been going strong for 7 months, is it so far with it?
Yes.
That's right, 7 months strong, baby. That's right. He's past the 6 pack. My man's going to the 12 pack.
Yeah.
Abs of the 1 year anniversary with this show, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Tune into the show, holla at the man, grab Power of the Seed, magical book. Check it out at your local library too if you're in the Baltimore area. It's good stuff. Good with 20 O's. Yes, indeed. So, any parting words for folks still listening, Doctor?
Yes, Don Juan, thank you as always for an amazing time to share your platform. But I just want to tell people, whatever you do, hold on. Whatever you do, hang in there. It won't be long. Things are shifting and changing. Whatever you do, keep pushing, keep pressing, and pursuing purpose, that it might connect with destiny. But whatever you do, don't get stuck in the middle of your process, and knowing that quitting is not an option.
How's it going, you super special, awesome human? Since you made it to the end of this episode, it looks like you really enjoyed yourself. Since you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with at least 3 people in your network and tell them what you really liked about this episode.